The crystalline spires of Varela Prime glimmered in the dual sunset, casting rainbow prisms across the grand Unity Plaza. Jax Carter squinted through the dazzling light, adjusting his formal Terran Coalition uniform for what must have been the 20th time in as many minutes. The diplomatic attire charcoal gray, with luminescent blue piping that matched Earth's oceans, as seen from orbit, felt stiff after his journey aboard the cramped interstellar transport. "Stop fidgeting," whispered Consul Marin at his side, her voice barely audible above the cacophony of alien languages surrounding them. "The Virelon Royal Court notices everything. Every gesture carries meaning here." Jax nodded, suppressing an eye roll. After 5 successful first-contact missions across the Orion Expanse, he considered himself something of an expert on alien protocol. Sure, there had been that minor incident with the Proxians, when he'd accidentally worn his boots inside their root temple, but who could have guessed their flooring was considered sentient? "I've studied the briefing materials thoroughly," he assured Marin, flashing the confident smile that had earned him the nickname Diplomat Charming back at the Academy. The Virelons value punctuality, eye contact, and firm handshakes, just like most humanoid species. Marin's lips thinned to a worried line. "There's more nuance than—" "Trust me," Jax interrupted, already scanning the crowd for the distinctive purple-tinged skin of the Virelon delegation. "Cultural adaptation is my specialty." The Grand Unity Banquet was the crown jewel of the interstellar diplomatic calendar, a kaleidoscope of alien cultures converging in Varela Prime's central plaza. Each species had their own pavilion decorated, according to their homeworld's aesthetic. The human structure was a modest affair of clean lines and neutral tones, while the neighboring Zorvik's pavilion loomed with intimidating black metallic curves and pulsing crimson lights. Through the crowd, Jax spotted his primary target for the evening, Ambassador Iliara of the Virelon Royal Court. Even at a distance, she commanded attention. Nearly 7 feet tall, her slender frame was draped in flowing silver-blue fabric that seemed to capture the stars themselves. But most distinctive were the 2 ornamental chest plates that adorned her torso, iridescent, perfectly rounded domes that resembled what humans might uncharitably call melons. These chest plates, Jax vaguely recalled from his hasty review of the cultural brief, indicated Iliara's high status within Virelon society. Each curve and pattern told the story of her lineage and accomplishments, though the specifics eluded him at the moment. "Ambassador Iliara is approaching," Marin hissed urgently. "Remember, the Mineral Rights Treaty negotiations begin tomorrow. The Virelons control 60% of the galaxy's neodymium deposits. We can't afford any—" "Relax," Jax murmured, straightening his posture and plastering on his most diplomatic smile. "I've got this." Ambassador Iliara glided toward them, her movement so smooth she appeared to float above the gleaming plaza floor. 2 junior Virelon officials flanked her, their smaller chest plates indicating their lower ranks. As she drew closer, Jax noted the intricate, almost hypnotic patterns swirling across her ornamental chest pieces, truly beautiful craftsmanship. "Envoy Carter." Iliara's melodic voice carried a translator's slight delay. "The Virelon sovereignty welcomes you to our humble world. We have heard much of your skill in bridging cultural divides." This was his moment. Jax stepped forward confidently, extended his right hand, and gave a respectful bow of his head. "Ambassador Iliara, the Terran Coalition is honored by your hospitality. I look forward to strengthening the bonds between our peoples." The silence that followed was absolute. The ambient chatter of the plaza seemed to vanish as if sucked into a vacuum. Ambassador Iliara's eyes, all 3 of them, widened in unmistakable shock. Her junior officials gasped, one clutching at their chest plates protectively. Jax maintained his position, hand-extended smile frozen in place, wondering what he'd said wrong. Behind him, he heard Marin's barely audible groan. Ambassador Iliara finally broke the terrible silence, her voice now cold as the void between stars. "Human, You are supposed to greet my melons, not my hand, it's custom. The translation software couldn't quite capture the Virilan word for the sacred chest plates, defaulting to the closest Earth approximation with an awkward bracket notation. Jax's smile faltered. What? You extend greeting to the status symbols, not to the appendages. Iliara clarified, her three eyes narrowing dangerously. To ignore the chest plates and offer contact with your manipulator limb instead is to declare our status, meaningless and insult of the highest order. Around them, other dignitaries had stopped to stare. From the corner of his eye, Jax noticed several Zorvix officials, watching with undisguised glee. The tension in the air thickened, like congealing gel. Ambassador, I sincerely apologize for my... Jax began dropping his hand and attempting to recover. But Iliara raised her long-fingered hand to silence him. Perhaps the Terrans are not as culturally adaptable as we were led to believe. A grave disappointment. She turned to leave the fabric of her ceremonial garment, swirling like angry storm clouds. Consul Marin stepped forward desperately. Ambassador, please. Envoy Carter meant no disrespect. There appears to have been an oversight in our cultural briefing. Iliara paused, her back still to them. The proper greeting ritual has been practiced on Varela Prime for 27 generations. It is the foundation of all diplomatic exchange. She half-turned, casting a cold glance over her shoulder. The treaty discussions scheduled for tomorrow will be postponed until we determine whether the Terran coalition is capable of the most basic interspecies respect. With that, she glided away, her entourage closing protectively around her. The watching crowd slowly resumed their conversations, though now with many glances and whispers directed toward the humans. What just happened? Jax asked, his confident facade crumbling. Marin grabbed his elbow with surprising strength and steered him toward the exit. What happened is that you just insulted the highest-ranking Virilan official by ignoring their most sacred cultural custom. Did you even read the complete briefing package? I skimmed it. Jax admitted the gravity of his error beginning to sink in. The section on greetings mentioned handshakes being acceptable with most humanoid species, so I assumed... You assumed wrong, Marin cut him off as they reached the relative privacy of the corridor, leading to the Terran embassy wing. The Virilans are technically humanoid in basic body plan, but their social customs are entirely different. Their chest plates are sacred emblems of lineage and achievement. The greeting ritual involves a specific bow directed toward them, acknowledging the status they represent. Jax felt his stomach twist. And I completely ignored them and offered a handshake instead. Worse, Marin grimaced. By offering your hand instead of honoring the chest plates, you essentially declared that you don't recognize Virilan authority or accomplishment. It's like walking up to an Earth military general and deliberately ignoring their medals while trying to high-five them. That's not in the standard briefing, Jax protested weakly. It's in the comprehensive cultural appendix, Marin replied, her voice tight with stress. The one that specifically noted Virilans are an exception to the humanoid handshake protocol. Jax ran a hand through his hair, his mind racing through the implications. The treaty negotiations are now in jeopardy, Marin confirmed. Without Virilan neodymium, the Coalition's quantum drive expansion is delayed by years. The Zorvix will swoop in with their own offer before the week is out. There must be a way to fix this, Jax said, determination replacing his initial shock. Cultural misunderstandings happen all the time in first contact scenarios. This isn't first contact, Jax, Marin reminded him sharply. The Terran-Virelan relationship is 3 decades old. That's why this mistake is so damaging. It suggests we haven't bothered to learn their ways despite years of interaction. They reached the embassy's secure wing, where the curved architecture morphed to reflect more Earth-like design sensibilities. Marin palmed the biometric scanner, and the doors slid open to reveal the embassy's Cultural Research Center, a vast room filled with holographic displays and interactive cultural databases. We have exactly 12 hours, Marin announced, activating the central console. 12 hours until the coalition officials back home wake up and discover that their rising star envoy has potentially torpedoed the most important mineral rights treaty of the decade. Jax straightened his shoulders, his diplomatic training kicking in. Then we have 12 hours to find a solution. I'll master the proper greeting ritual, make a formal apology, and salvage the negotiations. Marin gave him a skeptical look. The Virilan chestplate greeting takes their own people years to perfect. It's not just a bow, it's a choreographed sequence of movements each, with spiritual and historical significance. Then I'd better get started, Jax replied, already calling up the Virilan cultural database. I need everything we have on their greeting ritual, the significance of the chestplates, and proper apology protocols. For the next 6 hours, Jax immersed himself in Virilan cultural studies. The holographic instructor, a simulated Virilan with adjustable difficulty settings, guided him through the basics of the chestplate greeting. What had seemed a simple bow in his imagination turned out to be an intricate dance of subtle movements. No, 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 the hologram chided for the 20th time. The approach angle must acknowledge both chestplates equally, or you imply favoritism between the dual aspects of accomplishment and heritage. Jax wiped sweat from his brow, his back aching from the unnatural posture. Again, he insisted, resetting his position. Consul Marin returned as dawn approached, carrying 2 steaming cups of synthetic caffeine. Any progress? Some, Jax admitted, accepting the beverage gratefully. But this ritual is incredibly nuanced. The initial approach requires maintaining eye contact with all 3 Virilan eyes simultaneously, while keeping your gaze at least 30 degrees above the chestplates to avoid appearing presumptuous. Then comes the triple pivot bow, which must— A soft chime interrupted him as the embassy's communication system activated. Incoming transmission from Ambassador Iliara's office, announced the automated voice. Jax and Marin exchanged alarmed glances. Accept, Marin commanded. The holographic display shifted to reveal not Iliara herself, but one of her junior officials. Consul Marin Envoy Carter, the Virilan, began formally. Ambassador Iliara has considered last night's incident. Jax stepped forward. Please convey my deepest apologies to the ambassador. I'm currently studying the proper greeting ritual and wish to make amends for my disrespect. The Virilan's expression remained neutral. The ambassador acknowledges your contrition. After consultation with the Virilan High Council, she has decided to offer you an opportunity to demonstrate sincere cultural respect. Hope flickered in Jax's chest. I'm grateful for the chance. Ambassador Iliara will personally instruct you in proper Virilan protocol, the official continued. If you can prove capable of learning our ways, the treaty discussions may proceed as scheduled, though delayed by 3 days. It was more than Jax had dared hope for. Please tell the ambassador I accept her generous offer and will dedicate myself to learning. She will meet you at the Temple of Cultural Exchange at midday. The official concluded before the transmission ended. Marin exhaled loudly. That's unexpected. Iliara rarely takes a personal interest in protocol training. It's our chance to salvage the mission, Jax said, renewed determination flooding through him. I won't waste it. When midday arrived, Jax stood before the Temple of Cultural Exchange, a massive dome of translucent crystal that refracted Varela Prime's sunlight into an ever-shifting rainbow. The structure housed dedicated spaces for each allied species to share their customs and traditions with others. Ambassador Iliara awaited him in the Virilan chamber, a circular room whose walls were inscribed with the history of their people in flowing script. Today, she wore simpler attire, though her chest plates remained as elaborately decorated as before. Envoy Carter, she acknowledged his arrival with cool formality. Jax resisted the impulse to extend his hand. Instead, he attempted a crude version of the Virilan bow he'd been practicing, careful to direct his attention to the sacred chest plates. Iliara observed his effort with all 3 eyes, her expression unreadable. An improvement, though far from adequate. At least you acknowledge the existence of status now. I deeply regret my ignorance, Ambassador, Jax said earnestly. I failed to study your customs with the thoroughness they deserve. Yet you claim to be a specialist in cultural adaptation, she noted, circling him slowly. Perhaps humans place less value on accurate self-assessment than Virelons do. The barb stung, but Jax accepted it as deserved. I was overconfident. I allowed past successes to make me complacent. Something in his candid admission seemed to soften Iliara's demeanor slightly. Then perhaps there is hope for you yet, Envoy Carter. Let us begin with the fundamentals. What followed was the most grueling cultural training session of Jax's diplomatic career. Iliara proved to be a demanding instructor, insisting on precision in every aspect of the greeting ritual. The chest plates represent the duality of Virelon achievement, she explained, adjusting Jax's posture with firm hands. The left symbolizes personal accomplishment, the right, ancestral heritage. By acknowledging both simultaneously, you honor both what we have done and where we come from. Hour after hour, Jax practiced the intricate movements under Iliara's critical gaze. Each time he thought he'd mastered a component, she would introduce a new layer of complexity. The final bow must be held for precisely 3 heartbeats, she instructed. Any longer suggests obsequiousness. Any shorter implies impatience. How long is a Virelon heartbeat? Jax asked, wiping sweat from his brow. Iliara touched her chest. Feel, she commanded, taking his hand and placing it against the edge of her left chest plate. Jax felt the steady, slow rhythm beneath, significantly slower than a human heart. I see, he said carefully, counting the beats. It's about twice as long as a human heartbeat. Then, you must adjust accordingly, Iliara replied. Just as we must adjust to your quick, fluttering rhythms in other negotiations. By the time evening fell, Jax had made substantial progress. His muscles ached from the unfamiliar movements, but the basic sequence was beginning to feel natural. You learn quickly when properly motivated, Iliara observed as they concluded the session. Tomorrow we will refine the nuances. Thank you for your patience, Ambassador, Jax said, resisting the urge to slump in exhaustion. Iliara gathered her ceremonial wraps. Tell me, Envoy Carter, why does the Terran Coalition value this treaty so highly? Our analysts say you have alternative sources for neodymium, though perhaps at higher cost. The question caught Jax off guard. The official position is that Virelon neodymium has unique properties ideal for our quantum drive program. And the unofficial position. Her 3 eyes fixed on him intently. Jax considered his response carefully. The truth, he decided, might serve better than diplomatic evasion. Unofficially, we value the relationship with Varela Prime beyond the resources. Your position in this sector makes you a crucial ally against Zorvik's expansion. Iliara's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. Honesty. Perhaps you are learning our ways already, Envoy. The Virelons value directness once proper respect has been established. As Jax returned to the embassy that evening, he felt cautiously optimistic. Behind him, unnoticed in the shadows of a neighboring building, 2 Zorvik's observers watched his departure with calculating eyes. The following morning brought an unexpected complication. As Jax prepared for his second training session with Ambassador Iliara, Consul Marin burst into his quarters, her face tight with concern. The Zorvik's delegation is spreading rumors across the diplomatic community, she announced without preamble. They're claiming that your blunder was deliberate, a Terran attempt to undermine Virelon customs. Jax paused in adjusting his formal attire. That's absurd. It was clearly an honest mistake. The Zorvik's are suggesting that Terrans secretly mock Virelon customs, Marin continued. They've apparently compiled instances of other minor protocol breaches by coalition representatives over the years, presenting them as evidence of a pattern of disrespect. A deliberate smear campaign, Jax concluded, anger flaring. They're exploiting my mistake to drive a wedge between us and the Virelons. It gets worse, Marin said, pacing the room. Zorvik's ambassador Dravix has requested a formal audience with the Virilan High Council, tomorrow ostensibly, to discuss their own neodymium offer. The implications were clear. If the Zorviks secured a mineral rights deal with the Virilans, the coalition would be forced to either pay extortionate prices to the Zorvik's middlemen or delay their quantum drive program by years. We need to accelerate our timeline, Jax decided. I'll speak with Ambassador Iliara today, request a formal opportunity to demonstrate my mastery of the greeting ritual before the High Council. Is that wise? Marin asked skeptically. You've had barely a day of training. It's our only chance to counter the Zorvik's narrative, Jax replied, straightening his uniform with renewed determination. If I can publicly show proper respect for Virilan custom, it undermines their entire claim. When Jax arrived at the Temple of Cultural Exchange, he found Ambassador Iliara already aware of the Zorvik's rumors. Her posture was more rigid than the previous day, her 3 eyes clouded with doubt. I must ask directly, Envoy Carter, she began, as soon as they were alone. Does the Terran Coalition truly respect Virilan traditions, or are we merely a convenient resource repository to be humored? Jax met her gaze steadily. Ambassador, I can only speak for myself, and my own failing not for all humans. My error came from ignorance, and overconfidence, not disrespect. The Terran Coalition values Varela Prime, not just for its resources, but as a civilization worthy of admiration and alliance. His sincerity must have registered, for Iliara's expression softened slightly. The Zorviks are not known for their honesty, she acknowledged. Yet their claims have raised questions that cannot be ignored. Then let me answer those questions with actions, Jax proposed. I request the opportunity to demonstrate the proper greeting ritual before the High Council as a public affirmation of Terran respect for Virilan custom. Iliara's center eye widened in surprise. That is unprecedented. The chestplate greeting is not typically performed by off-worlders in formal settings, which makes it the perfect way to refute the Zorvik's allegations, Jax pointed out. If I can master your most sacred ritual, it proves our commitment to cultural understanding. For a long moment, Iliara studied him silently. Finally, she nodded. Very well. The Day of Reverence Festival begins tomorrow at sunset. It would be symbolically appropriate for your demonstration to occur then. Jax felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. Thank you, Ambassador. I won't disappoint you. See that you don't, Iliara replied gravely. The High Council will be present along with representatives from all allied worlds. The Zorviks too will witness your attempt. That settled, they resumed training with increased intensity. Hour after hour, Jax practiced the intricate movements of the chestplate greeting. His muscles burned with the effort of holding the precise positions, but gradually, the ritual began to feel less foreign, more natural. The key is not mere physical accuracy, Iliara explained, as she corrected his form yet again. The greeting must convey genuine respect. Our ancestors believed that proper form reveals proper intent. In human traditions, we have a similar concept, Jax noted. The Japanese tea ceremony, for instance, values the spirit of the performance as much as its technical execution. This comparison seemed to please Iliara. Perhaps our peoples are not so different after all. We both understand that ritual carries meaning beyond its visible form. As evening approached, Iliara surprised Jax by inviting him to join her for the traditional end-of-day meal. They moved to a small garden attached to the temple, where a simple table had been prepared with Virilan delicacies. This is unexpected, Jax admitted as they seated themselves. Cultural exchange goes beyond formal greetings, Iliara replied, gesturing to the food. To understand a people, one must share their sustenance. The meal provided a welcome respite from the rigorous training. As they ate, Iliara explained the significance of each dish, many of which were linked to Virilan creation myths or historical events. The spiral pattern of these root vegetables represents our belief in the cyclical nature of existence, she said, indicating a plate of lavender-colored spirals. We consume them to remind ourselves that all things return to their source eventually. Jax found himself genuinely fascinated. On Earth, food similarly connects us to our history and beliefs. Bread and wine hold special significance in many human religions. For the first time, Iliara seemed truly curious about human customs. Tell me of your Earth rituals, Envoy Carter. What sacred objects do humans revere? The conversation flowed more easily now, cultural exchange becoming a two-way street. Jax described various Earth customs, wedding rings, military salutes, religious symbols, while Iliara listened with evident interest. It seems we both seek meaning through symbolic acts, she observed, though the forms differ vastly. As they concluded the meal, Jax felt a new connection forming, not just diplomatic but personal. Thank you for sharing your traditions with me, Ambassador. I'm beginning to understand why the chest plates hold such significance. Iliara touched her ornamental domes with reverent fingers. These tell the story of my lineage back 17 generations and record my own accomplishments in service to Varela Prime. They are the embodiment of who I am. Then I am honored to learn the proper way to greet them, Jax said sincerely. A faint violet flush colored Iliara's cheeks, a virulent sign of pleased embarrassment. You must rest now, Envoy. Tomorrow's demonstration will test all you have learned. Back at the embassy, Jax found Consul Marin coordinating with Coalition headquarters via subspace communication. Her expression was grim as she ended the transmission. The Terran Coalition is concerned, she informed him. The Zorvix delegation has been extraordinarily active, speaking with representatives from every major power in the sector. They're trying to isolate us diplomatically, Jax concluded. Make the Terrans appear culturally insensitive to undermine our standing. Marin nodded. The Day of Reverence Festival is now our best chance to counter their narrative. If you can perform the greeting flawlessly, it sends a powerful message. And if I fail, it reinforces every claim the Zorvix have made, Jax added grimly. That night, long after Marin had retired, Jax continued practicing in his quarters. Every muscle in his body protested, but he pushed through the discomfort, running through the sequence again and again until it became almost automatic. Yet, even as his body learned the movements, his mind wrestled with deeper doubts. Was he truly capable of adapting to alien perspectives, or was his diplomatic career built on superficial charm rather than genuine understanding? The chestplate greeting had revealed a blind spot in his approach, a tendency to assume that other species thought essentially like humans beneath their exotic appearances. Computer replay. Ambassador Iliara's demonstration of the final reverence posture, he commanded. The holographic system complied, projecting a recording of Iliara's elegant movements. Watching her perform the ritual, Jax realized something he'd missed before. The greeting wasn't just about acknowledging status. It was an acknowledgement of the complete person, their history, and accomplishments together, forming their identity. By greeting the chest plates properly, one was saying, I see you fully, both what you have done and where you come from. With this new understanding, Jax tried again, infusing the movements with genuine respect rather than mechanical precision. Something shifted. The ritual began to feel right in a way it hadn't before. He finally collapsed into bed in the early hours of the morning, exhausted, but more confident than he'd been since the disastrous first meeting. The Day of Reverence dawned clear and bright on Varela Prime. According to tradition, it was a time when Virulons honored their ancestors and celebrated their accomplishments, a perfect symbolic backdrop for Jax's demonstration. The ceremonial amphitheater at the heart of the capital city could accommodate thousands. Its circular design, ensuring that everyone had a clear view of the central platform. By mid-afternoon, dignitaries from across the sector had begun to arrive, their varied forms and colorful ceremonial attire creating a living tapestry of interstellar diversity. In a preparation chamber beneath the amphitheater, Jax adjusted his formal uniform one last time. For this occasion, the Terran Embassy's cultural attaché had added subtle elements that paid homage to Virulon aesthetics, a sash with spiral patterns reminiscent of their sacred symbols, and iridescent thread that caught the light like their chest plates. Consul Marin entered, her expression a mixture of tension and hope. The amphitheater is nearly full. The entire High Council is present, along with representatives from 27 allied worlds. "And the Zorviks?" Jax asked. "Their full delegation occupies the north section," Marin confirmed. "Ambassador Dravix looks entirely too pleased with himself." Jax took a deep breath, centering himself. "Have you seen Ambassador Iliara?" "She's with the High Council. She'll introduce you when it's time." Marin hesitated, then added, "The Coalition has sent a message. Whatever happens today, they want you to know they support you." The vote of confidence helped steady Jax's nerves. "Then let's not keep the galaxy waiting." When the time came, Jax ascended to the central platform via a spiraling ramp. The amphitheater fell silent as he emerged into view, thousands of eyes, ranging from the single cyclopean orbs of the Tracians to the compound facets of the insectoid Zelth, all focused on the lone human figure. The Virilan High Council sat upon elevated seats directly opposite the entrance, their elaborate chest plates gleaming in the late afternoon light. Ambassador Iliara stood before them, resplendent in ceremonial attire, more elaborate than any Jax had seen her wear before. Citizens of Virella Prime, honored allies, distinguished guests." Her amplified voice rang out across the amphitheater. "We gather on this day of reverence to honor tradition and forge new understanding. Envoy Jax Carter of the Terran Coalition has requested the opportunity to demonstrate his respect for Virilan custom through the sacred chestplate greeting." A murmur rippled through the crowd. From his position, Jax could see the Zorvik's delegation leaning forward with predatory interest, their scaled faces betraying anticipation of his failure. Iliara continued. "This ritual has been performed by Virilans for 27 generations, but rarely attempted by off-worlders. Its proper execution requires not only physical precision, but spiritual alignment with our values. Envoy Carter will now approach the High Council and demonstrate the greeting." This was it. Jax began the long walk across the circular platform, keeping his pace measured as the ritual demanded. The silence was absolute, broken only by the soft sound of the traditional Virelan drums that had begun a slow heartbeat rhythm in the background. As he approached the midpoint of the platform, a discordant sound cut through the ceremonial drums, the harsh clang of a Zorvik ceremonial gong. The unexpected noise startled everyone, including the drummers, who faltered in their rhythm. Confusion rippled through the assembly. The Zorvik's gong was not part of the scheduled ceremony. From the corner of his eye, Jax saw guards moving toward the Zorvik section, while the High Council members exchanged alarmed glances. In the sudden chaos, Jax had a split-second decision to make: retreat, to wait for order to be restored, or continue despite the disruption. Remembering Iliara's words about the greeting reflecting inner intent, he chose to proceed. Keeping his focus on the High Council, Jax continued his approach. The drums gradually recovered their rhythm, though now slightly out of synchronization with his movements. Another challenge: the greeting's timing was calibrated to match the traditional beat. Ambassador Iliara watched him with all three eyes, wide, clearly uncertain whether he would abort the attempt. When she saw his determination to continue, something like approval flickered across her features. As Jax reached the position directly before the High Council, another disruption occurred. One of Iliara's ceremonial chest plates, apparently loosened by the earlier commotion, slipped slightly from its setting. Gasps echoed through the amphitheater at this potential desecration of the sacred ritual. Without missing a beat, Jax adapted. Rather than proceeding with the standard greeting, he smoothly transitioned to a variation he'd observed during his training, one used specifically when greeting a Virelan, whose status symbols were being adjusted or ceremonially upgraded. The move required him to pause, eyes lowered respectfully, until Iliara could secure her chestplate, then resume with a modified initial approach. It was a formidable test of his adaptability, but Jax executed it flawlessly, drawing appreciative murmurs from the Virilan audience. Once Iliara had composed herself, Jax began the full greeting in earnest. Each movement flowed into the next, the initial approach with eyes maintaining the proper, respectful alignment, the triple pivot that acknowledged both chest plates equally, the measured bow that telegraphed admiration without subservience. As he reached the final reverence posture, Jax remembered to count the slower Virilan heartbeats, holding the position for precisely the right duration. Then, in a moment of inspired improvisation, he added a subtle flourish that Iliara had mentioned was reserved for occasions of special significance, a gentle inclination of the head that signified not just respect, but genuine honor. As he completed the greeting, Jax spoke the traditional Virilan blessing phrase that accompanied the ritual, his careful practice ensuring proper pronunciation. May your accomplishments honor your ancestors, and your lineage glorify your deeds. For a breathless moment, the amphitheater remained silent. Then, Ambassador Iliara's center eye blinked a Virilan expression of profound approval, and she responded with the traditional acknowledgement, "My heritage and achievements welcome your respect." The High Council, as one, raised their hands in the Virilan gesture of acceptance. The eldest counselor, his chest plates so elaborate they extended beyond his shoulders, spoke in a resonant voice. "The greeting is recognized and honored. The Terran envoy has demonstrated true understanding of Virilan tradition." A chant began among the Virilan spectators, quickly swelling to fill the amphitheater, the traditional response to a perfectly executed ritual. Even some of the alien dignitaries joined in, those familiar with Virilan customs, recognizing the significance of the moment. In the Zorvik section, Ambassador Dravix and his delegation sat rigid with displeasure, their attempt to disrupt the ceremony having backfired completely. The security guards who had approached them now stood vigilant, ensuring no further interruptions. Ambassador Iliara stepped forward, taking a position beside Jax. "Citizens of Varela Prime, honored allies," she projected her voice once more. "Let it be recorded that on this day of reverence, envoy Jax Carter of the Terran Coalition has performed the sacred chestplate greeting with both technical precision and sincere respect. This demonstrates the Coalition's commitment to true cultural understanding." Applause erupted, multiple species expressing approval in their own ways, from the silent light flashing of the photosynthetic Lumidians to the thunderous foot-stamping of the massive Cronin delegates. As the ceremony concluded and the assembly began to disperse, Iliara guided Jax to a private reception area where the High Council awaited. Consul Marin joined them, her face alight with relief and pride. Envoy Carter, the eldest counselor, addressed him. "Your performance today has answered many questions about Terran intentions. The Zorvik's claims of disrespect have been thoroughly disproven. I am grateful for the opportunity to demonstrate the Coalition's true feelings toward Varela Prime." Jax replied, careful to maintain the formal speech pattern appropriate for addressing the council. Another counselor, her chest plates decorated with scientific achievement symbols, spoke next. "The mineral treaty discussions will proceed tomorrow as planned. However, we would request that you personally continue to represent the Terran interests." It was a significant vote of confidence. Jax bowed in the Virilan style. "I would be honored." Later, as the formal reception wound down, Jax found a moment alone with Ambassador Iliara on a balcony overlooking the city. The dual suns of Varela Prime were setting, casting the crystal spires in amber and gold. "Your chestplate," Jax noted. "It didn't slip by accident, did it?" Iliara's three eyes crinkled in amusement. "A final test, Envoy Carter. Anyone can memorize movements. True mastery requires adapting to the unexpected." "A test I nearly failed during my first meeting with you," Jax acknowledged ruefully. "Yet today, you succeeded brilliantly." Her voice softened. "The Zorvik's gong was not my doing, however. Their delegation will face diplomatic consequences for that disruption." Jax gazed out at the glittering city. "They were desperate to prevent the Terran-Virelan alliance from strengthening. It suggests we're on the right path." "Indeed." Iliara turned to face him fully. I owe you an apology as well, Envoy Carter. I judged you harshly based on a single error. An understandable reaction, Jax assured her. In your position, I might have done the same. Perhaps, she conceded. Yet it seems to me now that true respect lies not in perfect performance of rituals, but in the willingness to learn from mistakes and adapt to different perspectives. It was a profound insight, one that resonated deeply with Jax's own recent epiphany. That's the essence of diplomacy, isn't it? Not just exchanging pleasantries, but making the effort to see the universe through another's eyes. Precisely. Iliara's chest plates caught the last rays of the setting suns, their patterns seeming to shift and dance. In that sense, you are indeed a skilled diplomat, Jax Carter. The use of his name without his title marked a significant shift in their relationship from formal diplomatic counterparts to something approaching friendship. The following day, the treaty negotiations proceeded smoothly. With his new understanding of Virilan culture, Jax was able to navigate subtle nuances that might otherwise have created friction. By evening, a preliminary agreement had been reached that satisfied both parties. The Terran coalition would receive exclusive rights to Virilan neodymium deposits, while Varela Prime would gain advanced terraforming technology to reclaim areas of their world damaged by ancient mining practices. The Zorvix delegation, thoroughly discredited by their disruptive tactics, departed the planet with empty hands and wounded pride. Their ambassador made one final attempt to sow discord approaching Jax after the treaty signing. "Enjoy your temporary victory, human," Dravix hissed, his scaled face contorted in displeasure. "The Virilans may be impressed by your theatrical performance, but appearances can be deceiving." Jax responded with a perfect Varellan three-eye blink of dismissal. "As you have demonstrated admirably, Ambassador Dravix. Safe travels back to Zorvix Prime." The barb hit home. With a final glare, Dravix stalked away, his entourage scrambling to keep up. Consul Marin, who had witnessed the exchange, approached with an approving smile. "The Coalition will be pleased. Not only have we secured the Neodymium Treaty, but we've strengthened our position against Zorvix expansion in this sector. And more importantly," Jax added, "we've deepened our cultural understanding with the Virilans." 1 week later, as Jax prepared for the return journey to Earth, a message arrived from the Terran Coalition headquarters. Upon reading it, he sought out Ambassador Iliara, finding her in the Temple of Cultural Exchange, where their training had begun. "You're being offered a permanent post," Iliara observed as he shared the message. "Cultural attaché to Varela Prime." Jax nodded. "The Coalition believes my unique perspective on Virilan customs makes me suited for the position." "And what do you believe, Envoy Carter?" "I believe," he said thoughtfully, "that my greatest diplomatic error led to my most valuable lesson. I came to Varela Prime thinking I understood how to bridge cultural divides, only to discover I'd been skimming the surface." Iliara's three eyes studied him with evident approval. "And now I understand that true respect requires more than memorizing protocols. It means recognizing the deep significance behind customs that might seem alien to outsiders." He met her gaze steadily. "I would be honored to continue learning from your people. Then, I welcome you to your new position, Cultural Attaché Carter," Iliara said formally, though her eyes conveyed warmer sentiments. "Perhaps you might even teach us something of Earth customs in return." "A fair exchange," Jax agreed with a smile. The following morning, a new diplomatic delegation arrived from the Proxian Confederation. As Jax stood beside Ambassador Iliara to greet them, he executed a flawless chestplate salutation to the visiting dignitaries, drawing impressed murmurs from the Virilan officials present. It was a small victory in the grand scheme of galactic politics, but it represented something profound, the possibility of genuine understanding across the vast cultural divides that separated the stars. As Varela Prime's crystalline spires caught the light of dawn, Jax Carter, once the overly confident envoy who had caused a diplomatic crisis with a misplaced handshake, felt the weight of his new role settle comfortably upon his shoulders. Human and Varellan Earth and Varela Prime different in countless ways, yet united in the one thing that truly mattered across the stars: the willingness to see beyond one's own perspective and embrace the rich diversity of a shared universe.